I'm talking today with Sally Rose, who's one of the three artists in the upcoming Discovery Through Process Contemporary Fiber Art Show at the Arts Council of White Lake, which will be open to the public on April 30th. There will be a free reception on the closing date of the exhibit, which is Saturday, June 8th from 1 to 3 p.m. Sally Rose is located in Mount Pleasant, Michigan, and her work pushes the boundary of fiber arts. She was educated in traditional textile practices and is a professor emerita from Central Michigan University, where she taught fiber design. Her current artwork is an exploration of the complex beauty found in the natural fibers of dried vegetables, grape stems, and the shape-shifting possibilities of paper pulp. She can be found on Instagram at sallyrose.fibers. Sally, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Well, thank you for having me.
On your Instagram, I noticed that you feature many pieces you've made that look like natural objects, like nests or cocoons. And fibers are often made of organic materials that are processed into something that become more uniform, like the weave of a fabric. But some of your work almost seems to take the opposite approach, where something processed is converted to look more organic. Do you have a sense of what compels you to work in that direction?
That's a good question. And I need to say right off the bat that I love weaving, and I love that sense of putting parts and pieces together to make something that's whole, when in fact I'm usually taking things apart, as you mentioned. But one of my frustrations personally and I love teaching weaving, is that it always felt like it was something that took lots of pre-planning if you're using the loom, because you have to know ahead of time how much yarn to put on the loom, what the spacing is going to be, et cetera, et cetera. And I felt like I was restricted, and it came off the loom and it was a beautiful but flat something. And I personally kind of respond more to three-dimensional work. And you could manipulate and make a flat weaving dimensional, but it was still a linear piece of fabric that you were trying to put into a shape. That paper, on the other hand, is something that is so flexible and so just capable of doing so many bazillion different things, that's partly what intrigued me. And the fact that it's natural materials, probably I came to gardening late, and it was partly, taking all those clippings and all of that information, everything that was in the garden, and bringing it into the studio. Paper making lent itself very much to that. So.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, some of the objects on your Instagram, it's almost like the type of thing that you would find in a garden if you were, weeding through them. Oh my gosh, an animal has built a little, a nest here or something, which is so cool. It for me, it like spurred so many questions. It was a very curious moment or exciting moment to see that work. Your piece Investigates features thinly sliced vegetables and fruits in old slide film sleeves. Your piece Denial is partially constructed of Japanese maple leaves, and some of your pieces use twigs in their construction. I was wondering, what draws you to using actual twigs, leaves, fruits, and vegetables in your work?
I would say there are a couple of reasons, but probably primarily is structure. I just love kind of coming in really closely to, investigate, and that's where I get the title for that particular piece, Investigates. Once you get inside that pod, or that cross section of a fruit or a vegetable, I've had a number of people say, I won't look at my food the same way when I'm chopping it up, to make my salad. And that's, yes, that's one of the joys that I find in looking very closely, details of, structure, and to be able to share that and kind of turn someone else on to discovery. It doesn't get any better than that. So
that's cool. Yeah. Now that you mentioned like your interest in structure, and you had also said in your last response, like that using things that are three-dimensional or not 2D interests you. investigates is interesting because it is sort of about the structure of these fruits and vegetables, and it's also 3D. It's sort of breaking it up into different layers of the slide film, which is pretty neat.
Right.
You're one of 3 artists in the upcoming show, Discovery Through Process, and all 3 of you employ distinctive fiber techniques to create your artwork. Could you describe what process means to you and the role it plays in your art making?
I guess in the broadest sense, to me, living is process. And I find myself more and more as I'm trying to navigate through the world, my world, the bigger world. If something's not moving as quickly as I would like, I say, oh, it's a process. And it's very much how I think of this whole activity of art making and being creative and just working with different materials. In this sense, where the 3 of us are working with fibers. I like that. The other thing that I really like about the process is it allows me to tap into like the history of that material. And I belong to a couple of organizations where we meet, and it's kind of our tribe. We all know about paper making, so we don't have to explain to people why we're tearing up paper to make paper, or why we're beating plants to a pulp to make something that's beautiful. But at this one conference, there was a Turkish marbler, and he mentioned that paper is the dough of civilization. And that just captured, it's such a poetic thought. But along with that, this dough of civilization, paper has been used so many different ways. And you can get me going for many, many longer than you want to hear when I talk about the history of paper. But that's part of the process that is interesting to me. The other part of the process, it's like any of the art forms where the process of the idea, the process of kind of roughly sketching out something, then working with the technical, the actual fabrication, manipulating that material to make something that says something more. I oftentimes call they're not really artifacts, but they're artifactions. Sometimes they may look like something actually made it in nature. You mentioned nests and cocoons, things like that. But I like to have some little zinger in there that shows evidence of hand, to evidence of, I manipulated it. It wasn't something that was simply taken from the woods and put on a pedestal for, someone to enjoy. But process, it's going to be really fun to hear the interviews of the other 2 artists that are in this show, because process is something that it goes way beyond just the step by step making of something, for me anyway.
Do you find that your process is something that has changed over the years, or do you and is continually changing, or do you find that you've sort of had a process that you've developed and you more or less stick to it?
It's evolved over the years. In fact, I have taken papers that I've made and cut them up into strips and then weave them on the loom. And there I was making my flat 2-dimensional stuff again. But I would say I'm probably on the cusp of making a change, because I've been very much involved with using the grape stems as armature, covering that with the paper pulp. I'm quite intrigued with the intricacy of that, and but I'm kind of looking for what's going to be the next thing that I can do with paper. This is something else. I was largely because your colleague Sue Wink, who's helping put together this whole exhibition. It was her vision to have a fiber exhibition. I love ceramics, but I'm much more interested in having my hands in water than playing with fire. So I've kind of gone off on a tangent there, and this might be what you edit out.
No, that was super interesting. And went from one element to another, from fire to
Um,
water.
okay, but back to feeling like there's going to be a kind of a shift in where I put my focus. I'm also interested in the translucency that I can get with the different kinds of pulps. It ties in very much too with learning more about plants. It's kind of a push-pull that when I'm out in the garden, I feel like, oh, I should be in the studio. When I'm in the studio, I feel like, oh, there's, the garden is calling. There's a lot of, maintenance. Some people think of it as work. I think of it as play. If I am down and feeling like, ugh, go outside, get my hands in the dirt, and I'm fine. I'm truly fine. I see art making for me too is part of my process. It helps me step back from some of the concerns, some of the drama that's going on in the world. It's a bit of a respite, and I hope that I can offer that too, and kind of share that with other people. That if you need something different to think about, something different to look at, consider looking at these wonderful colors or these wonderful shapes and forms. Texture is always there.
Well, Sally, thanks so much for speaking with me today. Discovery Through Process Contemporary Fiber Art will be open to the public on April 30th. There will be a free reception for the artists on the closing date of the exhibit, which is Saturday, June 8th from 1 to 3 p.m. All three artists will be in attendance, and they'll be conducting a lively conversation that includes a Q&A with the public. So if any of the answers that Sally gave today interest you and you have some follow-up questions of your own, you can always ask at the Q&A. And Sally, thanks again so much for talking with me today.
Well, thank you.